There are a whole host of low-budget autofocus lenses on the market, many of which I've already reviewed on this channel. And today we've got another one for you, the TTArtisan Autofocus 56mm f1.8. Now this lens is available for Nikon Z mount, Fuji X mount and Sony E mount cameras. And today I'll be reviewing the Sony E mount version. This lens is an autofocus prime lens with a focal length of 56mm. It is designed for APS-C cameras and has a maximum aperture of f1.8. And the price of this lens is just $160, which again puts it well in the camp of autofocus lenses that have been coming out recently that are at a great price point. But is the lens any good? Let's find out. And before we get started, TTArtisan have sent me this lens for review, but have no input in the final video, and I'll be reviewing it honestly. And if you haven't seen my channel before, I make lots of videos about Sony cameras and lenses. So please subscribe to the channel to see more videos like this. And if you're enjoying this one, don't forget to leave a like on it, as every like helps me out a lot. So this lens is a 56mm prime lens for APS-C sensors, which means its full frame equivalent focal length is 84mm, making the image you get from this lens quite tight. This makes this lens pretty suitable for subject photography such as portraits, especially if you want to get those out of focus professional looking backgrounds. Where a focal length like this, however, is less suitable is where you want a wider shot, where you want a lot in your image. Or if you are using it in a space where you don't have a lot of room to set up far away from your subject. So for example, the room I'm using it in now, it would be too tight, probably around this kind of area on my face where I normally keep my camera. So not suitable for in-studio shots unless you've got quite a lot of room. And looking at the lens, it is small with a metallic finish casing. It weighs just 240 grams, so very small and light with a pretty nice sleek looking design. Now you'll notice there is no aperture ring on the lens, meaning that changing the aperture can only be done in camera. The only ring on the lens at all is the focus ring, which you will be using if you are using this lens in manual focus mode. So yeah, not much going on the lens, but overall quite a small and compact design. Now this lens does have a 52mm filter thread and comes with a plastic lens cap. The rear lens cap is also plastic, but has electronic connections and a USB port, which can be used for any future firmware updates which may come to the lens. It also includes a lens hood with an inverted style, which gives the lens quite a unique look. I don't have many lenses with this kind of lens hood. It's not my preferred look, but it does look quite neat. Now the minimum focus distance on this lens is 0.5 meters, which means you can't get super close up to your subject. However, that focal range of 56mm means you can still get decent close-ups. And talking of focusing, the autofocus system on this lens is quick and pretty accurate. I've not noticed any particular issues with it. I've mainly been using it paired with my Sony ZV-E10 camera. So now let's look at the image quality. And I found wide open at its maximum aperture of f1.8, this lens is nice and sharp, especially in the center of the image. And as you'd expect, it does get a little blurry around the edges at this wide open maximum aperture. However, unfortunately, stopping down the lens to around f8, whilst it does reduce this blurriness at the edges a decent amount, it doesn't quite sharpen it up to the level of the center of the image. Now, the center of the image is still nice and sharp, there's no issues there, but I would have been hoping at this stopped down aperture that it would be much sharper at the edges. However, overall, the sharpness is still pretty good, just not perfect. Also, at its widest aperture of f1.8, there is noticeable vignetting, which is the darkening around the edges of the image. Stopping the lens down to around f4, however, does lighten the image up considerably. When using the lens at its widest aperture of f1.8, you'll be able to get very smooth out of focus backgrounds, which is great if you're using this lens for portraits and stuff like that. especially at that longer focal length. It will keep things nice and out of focus. Paired with its good sharpness in the center of the image, it does show good strengths for this lens. The low light performance from this lens is also pretty good because of that wide aperture, meaning you can use it indoors and in low light with less grain and not having to bump up the ISO as much as you may have to with a lens with a narrower aperture. It's worth bearing in mind that there is no in-lens stabilization with this lens, meaning you'll need stabilization from your camera. This is especially important if you are going to be using this lens for making videos. And that long focal length of 56mm will only exaggerate camera movements when making videos. So I'd recommend only using this lens with a camera with stabilization, or maybe still shots using a tripod, or use a gimbal if you have one. Overall, the TTArtisan 56mm f1.8 is a good quality lens for its low price of $160, with nice sharp images, especially in the center. This makes it a great choice for budget portrait photography. It has an accurate autofocus system and provides good low light performance with professional looking background blur. Its image quality, especially for photography, is really good, and for $160 you'll struggle to find a better value portrait lens.